Hi, I am with Nikolai, the CTO of HealthSamurai today for the Digital Health Hackers podcast. Nikolai, welcome. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Nikolai, tell me what's your story? How did you end up here?
Yeah, so it's a long story. It's hard to calculate now how many years, but more than like maybe a couple of decades ago. So I was a young programmer. So I did pivot. So initially I did radio pharmacy, and I developed PhD in Karolinska University in Institute of Human Brain in St. Petersburg. So and I developed the radio tracer for epilepsy, which is called flumazenil, labeled with FHIR-19. But then I did like pivot to programming, like worked as a programmer about like 5 years. And then Pavel, our CEO, invited me to join the project, which was brand new cloud HR for hospitals. And we started building this cloud HR using Ruby on Rails. Yeah, it was, we were first probably HR who started hosting in AWS. It was young at that moment. It was web. So yeah, so that's how the story in Health IT started.
So where are you when you're doing all of this? So where are you in the world? Where are you when you're doing all of this?
I was in Russia, in St. Petersburg at that moment. So the Pavel moved to LA because most of our hospitals was in LA. So, and we were building this HR. We had like few hospitals installations, maybe 3 or 4 hospitals. Mm-hmm. We work in a small team in an Agile manner, like style. We worked with the physicians. And that's where I really enjoyed, because my past it was related to healthcare, like diagnostic imaging, like positron emission tomography. So I really like the domain. So, and I started talking to doctors. We worked on interfaces together. So, and we built this system like more than a decade. So, and and then the FHIR story started. But to be honest, it initially was like small open air story or open HR story because we were building this system for 4 years, and then like ONC come with a certification. It was the first certification. And when we look into our like domain model inside system from point of view of the certification and exchanges, so we understand that it's not complete. So a lot of ad hoc stuff, a lot of strange names. So I start looking for some standards just to like inspire and like get the names, because this is the hardest problem, to name things. And first of all, I found there was an era of CCD and HL7 version 3. So, and that was nightmare. We did support like this CCD export, but it was really nightmare. We spent like half a year to understanding what this standard is. It is very academically, it's very nice, but like from engineering point of view, it was a terrible implementation. So we spent so much time on it. So I started looking for something more lightweight. I found OpenAir quite young, so and with some guy from Japan, I worked on Ruby implementation for OpenAir. But I was a little bit disappointed because, from my point of view, like OpenAir specified too much. So it looks like specification for the final system. So it like forced me to make some technical decision, which I don't want to do. And then I found the very early draft of Graham's FHIR specification. And I really like it because Graham did the similar decision we did during the development. For example, like observation abstraction. Yes, so we introduced the same abstraction in our system. So I found the FHIR, and I was spoiled by Ruby community, so I know what the value of the community. And yes, and I found that the FHIR has a very nice established community. It was early days, but it still was very passionate community. So I didn't get the same experience from OpenAir at that moment. So there was some community, but and I like visited first dev days, and that's how the FHIR journey started. And internally, we just start using FHIR as internal EHR model. So we rewrote some piece of the system. To be honest, we rewrote our HR 3 times. And that was like last time we rewrote it, and we rewrote some piece in FHIR. So it was like FHIR-inspired data models inside. And that's how the FHIR way started by us. So finally, when the Epic got like monopoly in EHRs in healthcare, we decided to stay in healthcare, and we already were quite close to FHIR, and we predicted the power of the FHIR for the development. And we always like pushing the idea of FHIR-first development because we did it by themselves. And another very important aspect, when I started working, so in health IT, in medtech, so I was feeling alone, so nobody to ask what to do. But the domain is very complicated. You're talking to the physicians; they like every second physician tell you completely different story. So and I'm feeling alone, and I want some community experts to go and ask how to do it properly. So what the challenges, what are possible solutions, and that's, to be honest, what we found in FHIR. And that's very important aspect, and that's why we love FHIR, and that's why we trust in FHIR. So we, first of all, the FHIR is a community of passionate people who like really care about how this software is done for healthcare. So and eventually we become the FHIR company. So we did a spin-off from our consulting company, and we started like, historically it's the first commercial FHIR server, and the Smile and the FHIR guys just a year after did the same. So when I came to Graham first time and said, okay, so the FHIR looks like specification for the backend, for the platform. He said, you're joking. So it's just a like protocol to exchange. There should be like some legacy EHR behind, and you just talking to FHIR. I said, no, look, so we did it. So we use FHIR internally, and it helps a lot. And and I can imagine the platform, which is like FHIR storage with all this problem solved, which can save like years of development and like rewriting. As I told, we rewrite 3 times our system. So we started working. It's hard to tell the exact date. So first of all, we developed open source FHIR-based solution, which we're using like binary JSON and Postgres. And then we start building web interface on top of it. It was initially open source and called Fireplace, and then we closed it and make it Aidbox, the FHIR server. And then the rest of guys like Smile start doing based on Happy implementation, and the FHIR guys closed the implementation and started, at that time it was Wonk server. So that's how story started.
I mean, you've come quite a long way. I think today, if somebody asks, I want to use FHIR as my database or FHIR as my backend, Aidbox is probably the first, or HealthSamurai as a company is probably where people point to first. And it's really interesting that you looked at a lot of different things, and then you looked at what was available at that point, and then finally you picked FHIR community. And again, Graham, I've asked him the same question. He's still not on the same page about FHIR itself for storage. Right? Like there is a group of people who still think it's a messaging layer, but then you have gone ahead boldly with this FHIR-native storage or FHIR-first development, right? So what are some benefits for people who are looking at this as, they're looking at this for the first time? What are some benefits of developing directly on top of a FHIR API?
Mm-hmm. So I can tell like historical stuff. How it's. So I told we rewrote our EHR 3 times. Because you start like first, okay, you want like list of patients, list of encounters. First, you think that there should be only one name for the patient, only a few identifiers like SSN and something like this, and why you and then like you start new integration with LIS or something else, and then you discover there are more like elements, more fields. So now it's not just SSN and passport number or like driver license. So I should abstract it into identifier collection. So then you come up. Okay, there could be multiple names. Okay, so I'm working with initially we built like vitals table, I don't know, some like some like blood tests table and stuff like this. But then you look at this and like, okay, so I want to build some generic interface to show all the tests, all the labs and all the vitals in the same page. Okay, so maybe it's about like observation abstraction or something like this. So rewriting all this is always painful. So when you build your like first naive tables, and then you're trying to like introduce more generality, like cover more use cases, you always hit this problem. Yes, so you have to like you change your API, especially in a world like microservices. I'm not a big fan of microservices or like, but okay, so if you're changing your API, if you're breaking your API, so things getting like worse and worse. Yes, so you slow down. So, and this is the first value which is FHIR coming. This is like, it's quite generic domain informational model, where like hundreds of people think about this model, like fixed it. So, and they already covered a lot of these problems you will eventually meet in the future. So, and this is a good and a bad part of the FHIR, because when you start with the FHIR, you sometimes feel it's too generic for me. So, okay, I only have one name for the patient. Why do I care about the collection of names? But eventually, if you look at the like strategically, then you end up that you need this generic model. If your system will grow, if it's like successful business, eventually you have to do this. And for now, if you're in the US, for example, ONC will force you to do for any HR or EMR, yes. And so that's a like good and a bad part of the FHIR. So it's a nice generic model where like a lot of experts contributed, and you can just reuse this wisdom which is already in. And yes, you will have to understand how to work with this generality, with this complexity which is you getting. But this is like investment in the future. So that you're taking like quite stable API, you're taking quite stable informational model, you're getting the like your dictionary of names, which is again, so this is really painful to make the names. So we did a lot of mistakes when we work it. So FHIR gives you names, and I'm not forcing you just use the FHIR as is. Yeah, so this is like ultimate star, but at least I'm recommending people to at least inspire by FHIR. Yes. But for now, when we see like the ecosystem is growing, and we're proving this for decade, that you can build the whole system on FHIR. You can start with the FHIR, you can get API, you can get database, and you just like samples, SDKs, so and start building your system, and you may save like years and years of development, and like escape a lot of errors and problems. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, so a lot of people when they're starting out, right, like they, as you said rightly, like they feel alone, and it's not just them. Yeah. And knowing that there are other people who are working on an information model, and I think most of them just come to FHIR for that pre-existing information model. The fact that it's already there, it's kind of modeled, they start using it, right? So now let me come to the other side of the problem, right? So FHIR provides a sort of a generic interface. It's in essence, the international version of FHIR, or the FHIR core, is supposed to be extended. It's supposed to have profiles on top of it. It's supposed to have an implementation guide for really using it in a specialty, for example, right? So how are you overcoming these challenges around different people using the same resources in different ways? And again, like there are so many people who come and ask me even like, okay, what do I do to represent this particular information? Where do I put it? They don't know, right? Like there is no space in a resource. So what do? Right? So how do you deal with these questions with Aidbox?
Yeah, so it's not just with Aidbox. They usually help our customers. Aidbox is a platform. So, and the people building like a system on top of Aidbox, and we do consulting, like building together with them, like helping or bootstrapping projects like this. And we call it like FHIR modeling or FHIR mapping exercise. And first of all, you have to read documentation precisely. So what we found, like 50% of these requests there element in FHIR. Maybe you're looking at the wrong resource. And as I told, the first step that the FHIR is not just like specification, it's a community. And what we like, our first recommendation to the people, go to the lib chat, like chat.fhir.org, and ask this question, or first like search for this question, because probably a lot of people already asked this. And then you will definitely get the answer, what the best way and what the options, because so it's complex domain, so there's not one way to represent something. It could be observation, it could be condition, it could be flag, something like this, but you have like 1,000 active like percentage people. You may ask and discuss why should I put like, I don't know, my smoking status into observation, not condition, or vice versa, and at least you will discuss, you will get the opinion. So the first, read the documentation, then go to the community and ask. And another like common disappointed people coming to the chat and asking, and they getting like 3 options, and they say, okay, there is no one option, but it is good, as I told, the final decision is done by you. So you just like consulting the group, like using the crowdsourcing, yes, and then you're making your final decision. So people will give you, like community will give you the options, and then you have to build your logical model to choose specific stuff. And you can get back to the community and tell, here is my like reasoning, and I'm gonna go that way. Maybe somebody will tell you that it's still wrong, but it's up to you. So it's not like mandatory. And as I told you, the FHIR is built on like 80-20 rule, and it really works in real world. So the FHIR works very well for this 20%, which is covered like 80% of usage. And then for the rest 20, you have to think by yourself or discuss with the community, make the decision. So when it's not fit FHIR, for example, we introduced since the beginning, we introduced custom resources, then other FHIR servers do the same. So I know in Aidbox a user resource, which is not FHIR resource, but it can refer the patient or practitioner or something like this. So when it's completely not enough, like and FHIR domain doesn't want to cover everything, So it's okay to go with the custom resources, which behaves like FHIR, so they uniform with the API and all this stuff, but they live inside your system, especially if you don't want to exchange these resources outside. So this is a rule. So if you don't have to exchange these resources outside, make the custom resources. So it's up to you. If the domain in the FHIR is quite young, let's say you're coming to oncology or something like this, or like DNA stuff, so then the working group can be quite young, the specification can be quite like unstable, but again, so you can join this group and you can influence it. So you can make your custom resource, because during this long way, I see how people did it. So I saw that like FHIR wasn't very good for labs, then the labs joined in the FHIR, they build like working group, and finally FHIR has everything which is needed for labs. The same happened with the health plans and insurance companies. We have like quite nice domain in the FHIR. So make it as a custom resource, then go back to community and try to backport what you did, what you like battle tested in real life. So that's how usually it works. So the FHIR doesn't answer you 100%. So still use your mind, but like use a crowd, like FHIR community as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I mean, that's a really good way to look at the information modeling effort of FHIR. So I'm going to ask you a lot of tough questions, because you are the leading FHIR as a database server. So I'm going to, ask you a lot of these kind of questions. Okay. So let's assume that the information modeling has been done, right? Like, so the FHIR community, along with the crowdsourcing, they're doing the information modeling. Now, as a FHIR server, right? Like, okay, why should someone look at a FHIR server as opposed to just, let's say, another NoSQL server, MongoDB, or just they take these data models and then they use their own database for persistence, right? Like, so what are some benefits, I would say, of using a FHIR server or a FHIR-first database?
Yeah, so it still maybe like clarify your question. So the first of all, yeah, so in modern databases which do support like documents like JSONs or something like this on nested data structures, you can definitely put it inside database. Like let's, for example, we are using binary JSON in Postgres, and we store all FHIR almost as is with a small message. And then, but to be honest, so our FHIR server is just like 10 years of experience to storing FHIR as a binary JSON in Postgres. So we spend a lot of time to understand how to do it properly, yes? And that's the value we're bringing. So not just, you can put like FHIR resources in Postgres as a binary JSON, but then you have to build like API, then you have to build indexes and all this stuff because you still want like some compliant API on top of it. Then you want to build like GraphQL. That's what we did. So there is no magic which database we picked, and but we just spent a lot of years to implementing this, like finding the best solution. We rewrote even Aidbox like 3 times. So because like you always find a better way to do this. And it accumulates all these ideas, all this stuff. So, and yes, sure, you definitely can put FHIR as is in any modern databases. And in SQL and FHIR, we're discussing like DuckDB, BigQuery. They work quite nice with the FHIR. But it's still challenge. So if you start working, you will get around a lot of corner cases for this stuff, for the custom syntax for working with the JSON or nested data structures. And that's essentially what like FHIR server provided for you. And if you look at the price of the FHIR server and like amount of work you will spend by themselves implementing it, it's usually, so again, so we like, I don't know, it's decades of human years in the Aidbox, yes, with a quite simple idea, which started as a FHIR base, but the devil entails. And you can buy it for like 1,000 per year, yes, or you can like build it by yourself, paying your developers like during the like couple of years, and you don't know the result. But again, so I'm not talking that you should not try to build FHIR server. Definitely try. So do this if you have enough like time, money, and you have a good idea. Just build another FHIR server. That's cool. And yeah, I don't stop you. But if you want to like move faster with your business, you can take like working FHIR server, working FHIR database. You can pick the brains of the guys who work it in this area and try to like just boost, like speed up, trampoline your project, and then maybe you can build a FHIR server after.
That's a really good answer. I think you can try it, but then there is so much nuance around just even like Postgres JSONV or MongoDB or like all of this that it's a lot of experience.
I can tell you all the challenges in Postgres and binary JSON because it first looks quite easy. Yes? You just put it and it just worked, but then you're getting like into the toasts, into the like all the performance issues, into the like indexing issues, and it takes like months and years to like master it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a lot of the technical audience will probably relate to this, but I think like Postgres has this page limit of 8 KB or something. So if you have something bigger than that, it's like a nightmare. But great. So I want to bring our attention to the overarching challenge of the existing EHRs, right? Like, so there are a lot of existing old legacy EHRs. I would say like even the big names, Epic, Cerner, they are most of the time either like too expensive for what they are really, the value that they're providing, or they just don't really do what the industry needs, right? Like they're not that flexible. And we're seeing this new wave of new EHRs, right? Like, okay, build something headless on FHIR, do something on top of OpenAir, like build your own EHR. So in your opinion, how have you, what's your view of the industry, right? In general of the EHR industry? And yeah, would just like to know, are you competing?
Yeah, this is a very good question because as I thought, I started with a building EHR, and it was quite successful project. To be honest, the physician and nurses love our product because we built together, and it was a small team. To be honest, we was like maybe 10 developers for 4 hospitals, and we built it quite fast using Ruby on Rails. and we interact with the physician, and they like get what they really want. So. And I was disappointed when, because of like economic stuff, the Epic like just like got all of them, because like there's a consolidation of hospitals and they're looking for the one big solution, and they buying Epic and all this stuff. So, and that's like decrease the diversity. Yes, so this is like dinosaur stuff. So they got this niche, but they kind of stopped the evolution. And my dream to build the real modular EHR on FHIR, it still exists, and we're proving that it's possible with our customers. We built like a dozen specialized EHRs, EMRs, and portals in FHIR. And I still believe, I even have like in mind the project which we call Atomic EHR. It's kind of similar name the guys in OpenAir took for that, but I already bought the domain name. But the general idea that build a true modular EHR with the FHIR in the background, and you can write a plugin. If you really don't like this scheduling solution, I can plug and play with another scheduling solution. Or if I really prefer this patient chart, or use like open source patient chart, or extend it with the smart on FHIRs, I can really plug and play. And FHIR gives you this foundation to build a plug and play EHR. I was thinking it's gonna be faster, but now I think that like things in the health IT are slow, but we're getting to that point, because we see that a lot of our like potential customers and customers coming and they want to modernize the legacy successful EHR to make it FHIR-native. And we really have a dozen such customers, and some of them quite big. I can tell like few of them. So for example, like FHIR-node. This is guys decided to build very specialized hospice EHR. Because in the hospice, there's a lot of specific stuff, the coordination between the team, different locations. So they decided to build it very special. And they built it with like 3 developers in 3 years and go to production, and now like getting more and more customers, yes? So our customer, they built like specialized extension for the EHR for oncology. They have a set of experts who know the oncology. We built like dermatology specialized EHR with a billing module, which is specialized for the EHR. And we're talking with some big guys, for example, the German guys who are building dental EHR. Now they're going and modernizing the old version to be the FHIR-first. And I really like this trend. I think that we need a little bit more foundation to build this modular EHR, because they still building very modular EHR. It's going to be kind of monolithic EHR, but with it's easily extensible because of FHIR, yes, but they're not yet modular. But maybe in a couple of years, in a year, I will come back and tell you what means true modular EHR. Yeah, because there's still a lot of questions how UI should be composed, and other guys. Yes, and the guys from MedPlum, yes, so MedPlum, so they were talking with us for a long year, and I'm really disappointed they're becoming our competitor, because initially they decided to build like FHIR EHR, and I really like this idea because it's in the air. So let's build the FHIR EHR. Yeah, but then I talked to these guys. I told, why are you building like FHIR server plus EHR? You never end up with this. So now they skip the EHR part. They go to FHIR server land. But that's okay. We still have our partner Ilya Beda, who is working on open source Beda EMR, which is a part. And yes, but we still have a plan to maybe start this project of foundation, how you can build the whole EHR on top of FHIR with a bunch of modules. Yes.
I think I've interviewed both Beda EMR and MedPlum Reshma, and I think there is everybody kind of knows what they want from a modular EHR. They want to be able to plug and play different functionality, right? Like if they want, as you said, a particular scheduling solution, they should be able to pull it from an app store and then just install it on their EHR. In your opinion, what does this look like in the FHIR world?
Yeah, it's a little bit earlier because so the FHIR, it has a core, and on top of core you're building implementation guides, which are domain specific stuff. In ideal world, implementation guide is a module, or at least a specification for the module. If you go to US and let's say Argonaut project, there's like Argonaut scheduling, which is IG, which is put extra constraints on how the like scheduling API and models should behave. And that's why the like true modular EHR will come after we will understand how to do IGs properly, which is not yet the time. So it's just hot topic because like all this IG, the quality of IG is what means to load IG into FHIR server. So for now, it's hard to build true modular EHR because initially we have to build like all the IGs for different domains like scheduling, I don't know, lab tests and all this stuff. And then on top of these IGs, we can build the modules, which will be pluggable because there's a lot of like design work in these IGs and to specify how it should behave because too many variables. If you start like just on the basic FHIR, so you're introducing some, I don't know, extra extensions and all this stuff and the system should understand it. So, and it's going to be your custom stuff if you want to make it right now, yes, but when you will be able to write IG on that topic, and like you can imagine multiple modules which are working on top of this, like scheduling IG, so then it really will become plug and play. But yeah, we need some time to finalize IGs to help the people with the tooling for the IGs to make the quality of IGs better, and then we can build the modules. So okay, so that's my answer. So it's a little bit earlier. Yeah, then
maybe I should come back in another 2 years, see where we are at with these IGs. But so just to take it a little more in detail, like so the IGs need to be built on top of a base profile, and these IGs can't like conflict with one another either, right? Like one IG can't say you need to do this, and another IG can't go and say like you need to do the opposite of that. So it's a lot more than what we are currently able to support.
Yeah, but that's not that's true, and that's the real problem with IGs, and this is a real like essential complexity of this, yes, of this problem. So because we have to build IGs first, then we have to like harmonize all IGs so they can work together. So, and this is a community coordination to make one IG instead of like 5 IGs in different countries. Yes, and there's a lot of work, like IPS working on that. And this is an administrative challenge and like more organizational challenge than the technical challenge. So FHIR provide you tools to do that. So you have an IG, but then you have to coordinate. If you want to like universal scheduling IG or universal, I don't know, lab test IG or something like this, you have to coordinate. It will like now the governments are building like country IGs, yes. But after that, so they trying to make it more universal like IPS. If you look at the IPS, initially like countries built like local IGs, and they get together, start harmonizing and getting like IPS, International Patient Summary. So there's an APA, which is like making Smart on FHIR and what like ONC guys did in the US available for the, and this is a very hard communication work. It's not just about like tools, because you have tools, but now you have to get right people together, make them agree on specific topics. But what I see that it's moving probably slowly than I was expecting, but it's really moving forward. And probably we could not like skip this time. So the people should talk, should like initially build on compatible IG, then get together, like harmonize them, make them work together. And this like, so that's the FHIR. So this is like evolutionary stuff. So some IGs will die, some will survive, some will like produce another IGs, which will be much better. So
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, today, at least we've started that journey. Maybe in another few years, there will be this global information models for things that we want, and we are just able to work on top of that, and everyone's happy. But what do we have today? Like, I want to see something cool we can show our audience today. Maybe some demos, maybe something that you have that we can maybe show.
I can show you probably what our customers were able to build with the FHIR. So let me share my screen. So I'm not sure about demo, so I can show the demo of Aidbox if you're interested in, but...
Sure. I mean, let me see here.
Yeah, so let's do this. Yeah. Okay, so do we see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah, this was the first. So for example, what's like the first idea coming with the FHIR and what's called it like clinical data repository, that you can aggregate data in a standard format and then build some like decision support or analytics on top. So that's what we're doing with the Innovators guys. So this is a unicorn in States. They building data platform. They have like plugins to different popular EHRs. They complement EHR with a bunch of like clinical decision support, summaries, longitudinal patient record, and all this stuff. And they initially tried to build a FHIR server by themselves, but then they have a like performance issue. They come to us and said, okay, so we want to host like 100 million of patients. So can you help us? So we did like performance tests, and the finally guys coming with us. And they like, they have the whole system not in FHIR, but some pieces are migrating to the FHIR. So I'm not claiming the whole Innovator on FHIR, but they already have a FHIR, and they like refactoring and like modernizing the solution to the FHIR, and they see the value in the standard model. So that's Innovator guys. This is another platform like for medical. They like aggregate. They kind of similar to Innovator. They aggregating longitudinal patient record. They doing like very sophisticated matching. They cleaning up the data and preparing this data for like application, like, again, like clinical decision support and all this stuff, like to like building analytics. And they build the platform and they modernizing their platform using Aidbox and the FHIR. So then nice project which was done in Canada, which is called COVID-19 platform. During COVID time, the people need like analytics on the COVID stuff. So the guys used like analytical capabilities of Aidbox, because Aidbox is a FHIR database, and yeah, that's why I'm driving SQL on FHIR stuff. So they built like analytical distributed platform. They put like FHIR database into each hospital. And then they send the queries to these hospitals and collect the final results into the final dashboards. So they build this distributed analytical platform and deployed it into some number of hospitals in Canada. So yeah, so DeepSeek, so there's a lot of like AI stuff, and I think that AI will leverage FHIR, because for now all the LLMs know the FHIR, yes, and if you build like your clinical decision support on top of FHIR, so it's going to be plug and play, yes. So you can go to any site which support FHIR, we can build like an adapter to the FHIR, and then your clinical decision support working. So not just clinical, but like administrative decision support and all this stuff. Yes, so this is like DeepSeek's AI platform, which is using FHIR as a standard layer source of the data. So the very nice guys like Prognosis, they built like first FDA certified sepsis prediction as a device, software as a device stuff, and they're using again the Aidbox to aggregate data from different sources, standardize them, and then they run the model, providing like dashboards and yeah, and working. So that's how AI, analytics, and FHIR complement each other. And definitely data platforms, so like AI stuff can leverage standard FHIR model, and they can leverage Aidbox like database capabilities to make it even easier. So that another guys like, it's a very nice trend to build a patient portal. So the patient portal is essentially the small part of EMR, yes. So and again, so the patient know best. This is UK guys. They now serving NHS, the half of population. They built like they modernize. So they have initially like some legacy stuff, but for now the platform completely on FHIR. So they're using FHIR very nice for aggregating from different sources, and they building this longitudinal patient record and providing the patient portal in UK. They built very nice architecture. This very smart team. So they they have a dedicated FHIR server per source, and then they aggregating from multiple FHIR servers into one, like golden record FHIR server. So yeah, the nice guys. I hope they will have some talks on the FHIR events, or you can have an interview with these guys. So and they completely built the new version of the portal using FHIR. Yeah, so the Narus Health, this is our oldest customer. I don't remember, maybe 10 years ago. They built like care coordination platform, FHIR-first, with a mobile application, with a all the bunch of stuff. So for now, they were acquired by Lucent TPA, and they have like hundreds of customers. They providing concierge services like patient record. They doing some billing analytics, all this stuff. And this is like our FHIR-first application, which is like built 10 years ago and still working like and expanding. They building extra modules for Lucent Health and all this stuff. So, and there's like YouTube video where the developers, we help the guys to build this system, share how they build this system. So I think one of the first FHIR round tables, so the guys presented it, this platform. And it's still alive. So I think this is the oldest FHIR-first system in the world.
Excellent. I'll put a link to this video down below. Like if you want, you can check it out as well. Narus Health.
Sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, another guys like Healthy. So they're not yet like FHIR-first completely, but to pass their ONC certification in states, they use Aidbox to provide like standard API and like Smart on FHIR platform. And we have a bunch of other EHRs and states who bought Aidbox to pass their ONC certification, but I truly believe that eventually they will go to the FHIR-first approach. And I see this trend. So the first you pass ONC certification, and then you start using your FHIR, and then you're getting FHIR, FHIR-first. So this is another example. So you have an interview with Ilya Beda, who built like in partnership with us, like bunch of AMRs and HRs. So, and they open source what they built. And so the Bida AMR is like powered by Aidbox, and we're talking like probably together work on Atomic HR whenever the world is ready. But for now, the Bida AMR is deployed in a bunch of like real settings with Aidbox and works. And they really leverage like flexibility of Aidbox, like they can build reports and all this stuff. And for now, we like working on the e-prescription module for states. The like Bida AMR will get it for free and other stuff. So that's like, yeah, the Bida AMR. So this is not built with the Aidbox. So this is historical record. Yes. So this is HR we built like about 20 years ago. Doesn't look too old. Yes. Now it was built with the Ruby on Rails, but there's some FHIR inside. And especially like here you see that like all these labs were drawn, but they drawn from the FHIR model. And for now it's a frozen project, but we still use it in inspiration, and we like showing some ideas from this project to our customers who want to implement AMR or HR. So the best notes, the one of the leaders in the mental health HRs and states, and they are actively like maybe for 3-4 years working on modernizing the HR, and they already FHIR-first, and I know they're in production with the FHIR-first version. They have a legacy version and they have a FHIR-first, and they're migrating people. So, and they're using a lot of like FHIR features and a lot of Aidbox features inside. So then it's complete like FHIR-first HR. So they're really strong. I hope these guys will have a talks, or you can invite again. So the best knows guys. So this is like specialized HR. So the Metro Dermatology, this is like a dermatology HR we built with Metro. This is system called Clio. So, and we have a like YouTube video for this Clio HR. We built it with a network of dermatology clinics in New York. So, and this is completely FHIR-first. It has a built-in billing module, which is working nicely, and it has a like nice patient portal. Yeah, it was built with a quite small team, like maybe it started with 2 people. I was guy who started this, and then like team of 3-4 people built it for many years, and it used a lot. And the like unique part of it that was very dermatology oriented billing model, because billing in dermatology, it's too many very cheap visits and you have to automate, so you don't have a chance to do it manually, so there was a lot of automation in the billing. Yes, so yeah, we powered few regional health information systems. So the very nice guys like BodyLogic MD, this is team who, to be honest, they built like 3 solutions on top of Aidbox. They are one of our oldest partners. So, and they build this special like BodyLogic MD. It's like, I think it's like managing bots and all this stuff system. And this is a very nice guys, yeah. And this is one of their project, but they built 3 like EHR CMRs, very specialized. Yeah, we even tried to build like billing FHIR platforms. For now, it's a frozen project, but code is still alive, and we're picking like module by module from it. So the idea was to build like FHIR billing system for labs, but then we understand that this is a rabbit hole. So we were able to run it in a few labs in Kansas in the COVID time, and it's really like make money. But for now it's frozen, but we like picking like backporting, especially like billing modules into Aidbox. But that was nice experience. So we spent like 3 years building that stuff and still like backporting stuff from it, because there was nice NPI module, there was nice billing stuff built in. So, and we're working now on a billing module. So it's still quite complicated. There's too many details, and it's hard to understand how we can package it into the platform. But like piece by piece, we decomplecting all these real systems into small pieces and backporting these pieces into Aidbox.
So yeah, I think I definitely want to ask you about what do you think, where should the boundary be drawn between billing and healthcare data? Not just billing, but there is this whole ERP module. Yeah. So a lot of people use a separate solution. They may use like Microsoft Dynamics, or they may have their own ERP platform. Some people use SAP. Some people use ERP Next. So what is your take on, do you think all of the ERP data, all of the billing data, everything also should belong in the same data platform?
They should be pluggable. Yes, that's what I saw from like many years working with billing. It's hard to work in like US and health IT and not working with billing. So that there's a lot of custom stuff, a lot of legacy and like X12 and all this stuff. And like implementation of billing systems usually takes like years and a lot of blood and the work. And so, and I still disappointed why it's not so, like why you could not just plug and play that stuff. Yes. So, but we see that things are slowly moving into this direction. So the like CMS has a regulation, which is FHIR-based for the health plan. So like Blue Button project and all this stuff. And what's specific about like billing, because it's so tightly coupled, like billing and like providing healthcare services, that it's hard to like uncouple them into two separate services, because some billing decisions should be made on the front desk. Like, and because fixing them downstream is much more expensive. And that's what I see, that at least this system should be integrated. There should be protocols to do this. So we built like a lot of billing systems, and we really leverage a standard model. We leverage that we can like hook back into like EHR, EMR, like front desk, and start solving billing challenges at the beginning of journey, not at the end. Yes, and maybe eventually like billing will become in FHIR in US. I know it will take a lot of time, but we do conversion between like FHIR back and forth, and at least people who working with the billing stuff on the FHIR land, they can enjoy the FHIR, not like they they don't have to spend a lot of time on this like archaic XML,
No, that's very well put. I think having that ability to plug and play a billing system of their choice, and maybe one day we'll have a billing system directly on top of the platform. That's a very good take on this. So yeah, I mean, we can carry on. So Bridge GMR, yes, wow, you have such a long list of implementations. It's quite nice.
Yeah, so these guys are renamed into FHIR nodes, and this is a hospice EMR, which I already tell you a little bit. So the small team was able to build very specialized EHR, and they already in production, and they getting more and more customers because they build it with love. So it's built in Clojure.
That's how you know it's gonna last for another 20 years.
Yeah, because we work it in a mixed team together and still working together. Yeah, so. And sometimes we making this configuration, so the HealthSamurai helping to build it much faster. So the Teal Tech that guys tried, it's not a live project, but they guys tried to build some second opinion platform, the patient chart, in patient and care quality stuff. But that was a big project. For example, this is where the Beda company joined us, and so we helped them to learn FHIR. This is a very old project, and it's still a lot of ideas from this project are still copied into other solutions. So the Navimize, it's a small guys. They just built a scheduling startup. So the Red Kangaroo, they aggregated and make patient portal. The Yearn did real-time platform analytics. So we worked a little bit with UHN hospital building FHIR forms, but we have a next generation of this stuff. So yeah, I think let's stop. So I think that's enough inspiration, and more. The list is long. Not all of them published, but yeah, feel free to come and ask. So, and this is unique, our part, that we're really building FHIR-first systems, and we have a decade of experience to do that. There's a lot of challenges inside, but what we're doing, we're proving that our platform can be used by real world FHIR-first systems, not just CDRs, but up to EHR, so portals or stuff like this.
Absolutely. So I think you said challenges. What do you think are again, this is a very impressive list of implementations. So what are the key challenges that you usually face?
Oh, this is a good question. Yeah. So the first, the flexibility. Yes. So when you're building EHR, you need a lot of flexibility. And as we told, FHIR covering 20%, which is 80% of what you will do, but there's a rest of 20%. And you have to understand how you're going to work with this 20%. So this is the first challenge, and our answer is when the modeling is not enough, you go with the custom resources. And probably we can build a bridge with the logical models if there will be first-class logical models in FHIR. So then we're good with the custom resources. And maybe if we modularize FHIR, so it will be first-class citizens, custom resources. And another, when the FHIR API is not enough, that's quite often when you're really building sophisticated stuff, and that's where we come up with a SQL API. And that's why I'm talking that Aidbox is not just a FHIR server, it's FHIR database. And this is our unique part if we compare with our competitors. And what we see that people, again, the same rule is working. So you can build 20% of 80% of interfaces with FHIR, but you have 20% of sophisticated stuff reporting, or even encounters. Greet may be challenging with all these includes and rev includes. And that way, when the people discover that they can do SQL on their data, they fall down to the database and doing amazing stuff, because SQL is another standard language, yes, and it gives you full control over your data, and that's why we always were pushing this idea of the FHIR database, because this is critical for really sophisticated systems. Otherwise, if you storing blobs and just having search parameter, that's definitely not enough to build real system, or you will make some workarounds. So
And just
this
again,
is
for the audience who are listening, Nikolai is not just talking about doing JSON-B queries on SQL. Okay, like there is a lot more work that they've done, and maybe you can explain what this experience feels like.
Yeah. And this is another story. This is the story of SQL on FHIR working group. Because maybe 5 years ago, we get together with the Google guys, with the Cerner guys, and discuss, hey, so the modern databases are ready to store FHIR. Yes, so there's a BigQuery, there's a BigQuery, there's a Spark SQL, there's a Postgres. So we're sitting together and showing how we're working in specific technology with the FHIR. We tried to standardize, but it was hard because it is very vendor specific. Like BigQuery doesn't have the same syntax as a Postgres or like Spark. But we still published the first version of SQL on FHIR, which was mostly based on Ryan Brush work on the Spark SQL. But then after a couple of years, and engineers were really using in Google and HealthSamurai were really using this stuff, but it wasn't standardized. So then we come up together a couple of years after and discussed what are the main challenges, and everybody told that users are asking for some flat stuff. They want flat tables because most of tooling, most of SQL, they're expecting flat tables. And then we come up with the idea view definition. This is a very specific transformation which is flat on FHIR, and not generic but very use case specific. And this is a SQL on FHIR specification v2 with about 8 implementation now, which can flatten FHIR resources and gives you working with the flat tables. And there's a different implementation. In Aidbox, we have a sophisticated implementation which transpiled the view definition into SQL query. There are some straightforward and open source reference implementation which is doing on fly. It's getting resource and splitting it, but you can load into the table. And this gives you a lot of flexibility because the flat tables, LLM understand flat tables, all the Power BIs, all the tools understand flat tables. You can drag and drop dashboards. And the idea, you have generic stored data stored in a FHIR, then you build set of flat tables on top of one resource. They are not going to build one universal. And then you doing the rest on top of these flat tables. So everybody, welcome to the SQL on FHIR. We had a conference which is called Analytics on FHIR, so check out on YouTube. And we will probably put the links, yes. And you're welcome to the working group. You can join this work if you have ideas or want to implement or know more. Yeah, please contact our working group. Yeah,
really cool work. So I think this is the view definitions are defined by the person who's using this. Is there a set of default view definitions that you usually ship? How does this work?
Yeah, this is our dream. So we just finished the first version. It was published, SQL on FHIR. So what we are working for the next year, so what I can imagine that it's going to be part of IG. So when you're designing, let's say you're designing a profile, which is called blood pressure in a specific IG, and it put a lot of constraints, yes. And you can definitely design nice flat view for blood pressure with systolic and diastolic columns. And you can put it together with a profile because it will use the constraints from profile. Or you, for example, you say, okay, it should be in lowing. So you can make just a lowing code column, which is much easier to work with than with generic FHIR coding stuff. So that what we believe that people will start publishing view definition as a part of IGs, and you will probably get a bunch of view definition from the IG out of the box. And we're working on query resource. They can even put some quality queries or reports together with and you will get a nice pack profile, view definition, and the queries reporting, quality, data quality rules, and it will be published as IG. And because it's a standard, so different runners, you can just run it on your data and apply.
Yeah. I just have a screen here with how the flat definition and the view definition looks like. It's another resource type here, and it will define how a particular FHIR resource maps to another table, like a flat table. So again, this is the Aidbox user docs, but then I'll put a link to this as well. There is a cool demo online which I saw where you can kind of like just define this and then it automatically generates the tables. I can't find that, but I think this is cool. How do you tackle more complex nested items? So for example, there may be multiple names, multiple phone numbers. How do these show up as an array in the tables? How do you do these multiple names or identifiers, for example?
Yeah, I understand. This is the main problem working with a nested data structure. So the idea that like view definition will produce rows, and the idea of the view definition that for one resource you can produce multiple rows. So for example, if you have a patient with multiple names, you can create the patient name table, and then one patient resource will produce like 2 or 3 rows. So there is no like one-to-one matching. So that's how we're making it flat. So there's special instruction which is called like for each. Yeah, so it's doing. I can show you like what I usually showing on a workshop.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll let you share. Might be better. Yeah, let's.
Okay. So let's go. So you can install Aidbox locally on Go to our cloud. It's going to be free forever for development. So if no PHI data. So we have a nice feature which is called notebooks in Aidbox. So this is like teeny Jupyter notebooks. And if you print in notebooks like SQL on FHIR, so here's my notebook to work with view definitions. So, and you can execute. So initially we do a bulk import. So we're gonna import the patients. So we now imported like 11,000 patients. So we can try to search the patients. Okay, now we drop down to the Aidbox SQL API. So now you're just selecting from the patient table. And yeah, that's how things are stored. So you see it's a columns and the one big column with a binary JSON. So here is how you can query using Postgres specific syntax. Yes. So if you're okay, so this gives you the maximum flexibility. You can like, yeah, you can calculate ages, you can use the whole power of the Postgres. If you're not okay, so you can build a view definition. So the view definition say like which elements I should took and how I can flatten that. So here, probably I have to drop. So here I posting view definition, which will create a special table. To be honest, this is like a Postgres, real Postgres view. And now I can query. And for example, if I have like Power BI or like something else, some other tools, Looker, I can just start working with these flat tables, drawing dashboards. Or if I'm like building application, I can query from that table. So here is what really was generated. So inside the Aidbox generates sophisticated query, which is transpile FHIR path expression into JSON path and create it. So when you're querying this stuff, you, to be honest, because it's real view, so behind the query, we're really scanning the patient table. So that means that it's not materialized. But okay, so you feel free to play with this notebook, load the data, build different, for example, here's a much more sophisticated view definition with a, you see like we extracting SNOMED code into specific table. And now if we, okay, so it's probably, I skipped few, so I didn't download the condition. Let's download conditions.
So this is again, since it's a view, every time we are actually querying the table, it's compiling that into the actual JSONB path queries, and then it's hitting that against the JSONB column. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few options, so you can materialize it. If you want to build indexes and all this stuff, you can build materialized view, or even the table. But then you will like, it's not going to be real time. Yes, so you have to refresh your table. Come on, I don't know why it's slow, but it should be like 500,000 of conditions, but let's wait. I hope Aidbox will handle it. Yeah, so now we got it. So we have like 500,000 conditions. We can build the condition view, and we can query the count, so 500,000, and then we can see what's inside the view, yes? And you see how fast is Postgres, yeah? It's already 500,000 of conditions, so, and we didn't build any indexes, so you can work. And like for some EHR, that's...
Full-time employment is a, is a disease.
Yeah. And then you can start building some sophisticated stuff by like joining the tables and everything in this notebook. So I did like a couple of workshops during FHIR Connectathon, so feel free and try it. There's a bunch of other stuff, and to be honest, like SQL on FHIR is a specification. If you go to SQL on FHIR.org, here's the specification. We do have a set of implementations. Here you see the implementations. And you can, and here's how this implementation are passing the tests. You can look at the tests. So here's a very nice test suite, which is designed with a specification. Yeah. So feel free to take a look at the SQL on FHIR, because I think this is a big thing. It really liberates FHIR data, make them flat, and build a bridge between modern database ecosystem and like so all this stuff and the FHIR.
Absolutely. No, this was really cool. I'll definitely put a link to the, can I put a link to the notebook? Can anyone access that? Should they be able to download?
Anyone can do this if they will spin up Aidbox, which is free again. So, and they go to notebooks and they will see a bunch of notebooks and they can play with that. So we're working on to make these notebooks publicly, like public link. They're going to be read-only, but yeah, I think people will enjoy to play like in really. And again, so Aidbox forever going to be free for development. We will never charge the money, but please don't put like PHI data into it.
No, this is excellent. So really good demo, and I think a good grasp of what you're doing, right? Like, so FHIR servers, and again, that brings us to the other competitors who are doing FHIR servers, right? Like they are doing the APIs. So today we are seeing a lot of like AWS started up with HealthLake. I think we had them on the podcast as well. Google has a FHIR solution, and all of them also sort of give some version of SQL that you can use with it. For example, I think Google has the BigQuery variant which you can use. AWS HealthLake has Athena where you can kind of query. Now, and then there is MedPlum. There is so Smile CDR. How do you, for a person looking for a FHIR server, right? Why should they? What makes Aidbox different? What all should they consider, and who is a good fit for you, if I may ask?
Yeah, again, we started as an EHR team who building EHR, and we always keeping in mind that you should be able to build EHR with Aidbox. That's why we put database in the first place, and that's why our database and SQL API is our second API, and everything designed around this. And this is a unique part of the Aidbox that you can work with any resource, any element on a SQL layer. So the schema is quite stable. So, and this is how it's different from Google, because like, and it is transactional because it's Postgres. When you're building EHR, you need transactional stuff. Otherwise you're in trouble. So that's, I think, why guys moved from MedPlum they initially started with MongoDB, and they moved to Postgres. Okay, they're copying a lot. But okay, so there's a database, and we provide you access to the database. This is a part of our official API, and it is transactional. If you go to the Google, you have to press a special button, export to the BigQuery. This is not transactional. If you want to build like real dashboard for your EHR, like how many patients are waiting in the waiting room, so you can do this, but it's kind of hard technically. Yes, here it is. So, and if you want to like use SQL to collect data for your claim, you can do this because it's transactional. So, and HealthLake, it's a completely analytical solution. So this is not like transactional real-time system. So this is like CDR for analytics. The Google guys, they provide like export to BigQuery. They never will expose the like spanner, which is inside of, like, but we do. So we provide you access to our database, and we provide a bunch of like helper functions and APIs to work with that, like bulk validation of changed profiles, bulk imports, which is really efficient. So if you turn off the validation, you can load like 10,000 resources per second. So this is like magic of the Postgres. So if to boil it down, so in Aidbox is not just a FHIR server, but it is a FHIR database, which is transactional, and you can use it to build your sophisticated system. So that's our unique part.
You give them the direct database access as well, yeah?
Yeah, sure. So we have like SQL API. So when you can like send SQL queries to Aidbox through the REST, it's not kind of safe for all the system, but if Aidbox inside, so you can use Aidbox as just a smart database. We do provide you SQL on FHIR API, but it's okay if you connect to the database directly and start like the rules to playing with the database. It's quite straightforward. So, but it's up to you. So we're doing validation on a service layer because it's too sophisticated. So if you put like on invalid JSON into database, it's up to you. But you can always like run special API like asynchronous validation and all this stuff. So we have all these scenarios working. But the rules to working with the like database quite transparent. There's a table per resource. There's a main JSONB stuff. Use it. Yes, especially for querying. So it's things a little bit more complicated if you want to like update.
Yep.
But another like nice feature that you can write classical migration. Let's say you decided to move from one extension into element or something like this, and like doing this, like getting into memory and storing may take a while if you have millions of patients. But writing like efficient query, you have to master it, but when you did it, it can run like millions of patients in a few seconds, and you transactionally migrate all the data.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. The transactional guarantee here is so much more important because you can you do this on a live running system? You still have to kind of switch out everything at once, I think. So
no, on the real, there are some tricks how you can do this, but it's always like you will reinvent the like ACID transactional stuff.
Yeah. So can they modify tables? Can they add new tables? Can they have their own data?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So we and that's what a lot of projects are doing. So we just share, we can share database, and when we're doing a lot of like some project on top of Aidbox, we feel free to create like extra tables and join them. And so you see that SQL on FHIR creating like views and tables. So and we see some legacy system, they like if they in Postgres, they can install Aidbox near, and they can even do them like data imports through the database, which could be very efficient. So if you have like old flat table, you can write some SQL query which will generate FHIR data, and it's going to be like 100 times faster than moving it through the like some programming language runtime.
Excellent. No, that's really cool. And I wanted to also ask you about, I think in Aidbox you have a very robust authorization system as well, and you can define that as FHIR resources. But if someone's accessing the database, is it Postgres RLS, row level security, or is it done at the FHIR API level?
Yeah, we introduce access policy resource, which is eventually should be like reconsidered because guys are introducing permission resource. So we will probably migrate to permission resource and consent resources in the future to be like more FHIR oriented. And we're working with John, like bringing our experience to permission resource. So that's definitely done on the top level. We have a different DSLs like engines and one of them is a SQL, so you can make decision allow or not allow some operation on based on your data. So we do support security labels, and I'm really a believer in security labels, and I would introduce probably security attributes as a real framework to decouple FHIR server from the use cases. It's not like a full solution, but it gives you a nice framework to design very sophisticated rules. So we don't use row-based security in Postgres, but you can do that because again, so you can use your database if you want. You can do this. Is a lot of performance penalties on that and it's stuff, but potentially it is possible, but we are not using it. So for me, to be honest, so I believe in security labels, and I would extend it with the security attributes. We do have an Aidbox, what I call like safe APIs, or we scoped APIs. For example, if we have a patient API, and if you're working with which is used for Smart, when you're working with this patient API, to be honest, we're injecting like patient ID into every query, and you don't have to write complicated rules to do that, because when you're working on this like patient endpoints, you're always sure that you will get only data for this patient. And we did the same, we call it like organization-based, like multi-tenancy, when every resource has an attribute which is link a resource to organization, and on a specific API, we're injecting like organization IDs into every queries. And this makes things much easier than writing very complicated rules. So we definitely still like practitioner API is still challenge, because you have to join somehow the relationship to the patient, and the consent API is a challenge, but we are working how to solve it. And but in general, like this is a like hot area, to be honest, like this security permissions and all this stuff. And I really believe in like security labels, and I would extend it with the security attributes like patient ID, organization ID, and then we will have a framework which we can provide from Aidbox side, and you can build like consent-based and or like rule-based access control on top of it.
Really looking forward to the progress here. I think I saw a talk by some Google people last time on the policies. It'll be interesting to see where everyone converges, and good to have a authorization layer, right? Like I think we have Smart on FHIR, but it doesn't talk about authorization. It just talks about like the compartments and the scopes.
There's some pieces, and to be honest, if you combine Smart on FHIR with the security labels, you will get quite nice access control model. Because what I like about security labels that users doesn't have to understand what resource type, because as we told, like the same information can be in different resources, like diagnostic report, condition. But we're splitting problem in two pieces. So the one is like labeling service, which is when resource is created, it labels it with a specific like sensitivity labels and all this stuff. And then like security layer, which will enforce that specific labels are, or like filter out specific labels. So for example, like classical problem, like user want to provide access to everything but mental health. How to implement this using policies? You may write very sophisticated SQL policy on other stuff, but if you properly label it, your data with a like mental health label, you may say on every resource search, you may say exclude the label doesn't equal to mental health. And this is so easy to use and so kind of straightforward to implement that I really believe that this is the future of the security. And you can put this security label into consent, executable consent resource, and then the user will say, okay, I'm allowing these labels and disallowing these labels. And he not forced to think about resource types, because user never understand what the resource type is. Yes, like yep. Medication stated, but you can like build nice set of resource labels. And I would people to recommend to look at this track in the FHIR community. Like about the security labels and labeling services. John Mayerk and Mohammed are driving this. So we had a like meetup about this stuff, and there's a lot of materials on YouTube and like posts. So please take a look at security labels. I really believe that it's the future of the FHIR security. Yeah,
it's really cool. I feel like so I'm just sharing some examples. So I think it's just about tagging a particular resource with something, and then writing your security policies such that these are filtered out, or only something is shown. Very simple in concept. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of like performance challenges to implement this, but we like working on it. But this is like decoupling the problem. Yes, so you have a like labeling service which is smart enough, and I can predict that like generic, like some sophisticated labeling services will appear as a commercial products, which understand the data, can read probably like LLM based stuff. They can really read the resource narratives and label properly this resource. And then another side is like access. And then you can use this label data on access. And if you introduce like security attributes, which are not like just labels, but some data, let's say, I don't know, ID, organization ID, care team ID. So then you can use these attributes in your rules as well. And this is kind of similar to like best in the world, like ideas like Zanzibar, Google stuff, and all this stuff, because they are really like building model on top of set of attributes and labels. And because we did few experiments with like Zanzibar-like stuff, and like best, our guys from UK, they used polar bear, which is like special OAuth language for that, and they were able to write some sophisticated rules, but it is always like very use case specific, a lot of technical challenges and all this stuff. And I hope eventually we will sit down with the Google guys and probably MedPlum guys. They just copied what we did, yes, and the like Josh and the Smart and John Mayer can agree that this is a like permission resource. This is a set of security labels, and this is how like generalized FHIR security model works. And like let's everybody support it, and it's going to be like more like interoperable security model, because you need this for security, because data are moving, consent are moving, and you have to ensure it's not only deal of your service, it's attached to the data. And this is the like main challenge for TEFCA project and other project when the people are building like connected health, when the data are moving from one server to another. So this like provenance is consent should move with the data.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to enforce the same rules, even if the data was sent to a different location.
Absolutely. I agree. I think something here that's standardized would benefit the entire ecosystem. Hopefully something comes out and we can talk about that when it comes out. I have another question for you. So I think you covered a lot of things. Terminology on FHIR. What do you do?
Yeah.
What are the challenges that you're having? What's your take?
Yeah, the first of all, terminology is one of FHIR pillars. Yeah, so if we compare with OpenAir, this thing which is done quite good. So, and this is the very foundation for semantic interoperability. Yes. So, and this is okay. So that's done very good, but not perfect. So, and we are working to make it perfect. Yeah. So the main problem, it's not even related to the FHIR. It's probably related again. So this is organizational question. Yeah. So we have a bunch of terminology vendors, or like authoring bodies like Snowman, Loing. We have all this crazy set of licenses which you should sign on. Like, oh, I still hate CPT guys. Sorry guys, but I don't know how you can do this, making money from air. Just make it open source. And the content part is a huge part of terminology. So the FHIR has a like terminology API, and Aidbox do support some like essential part of it, or you can. There's a bunch of terminology servers which you can use. They're not still like good open source terminology server, but let's see. So this is the first problem: just load the data and serve it through the FHIR API. And this kind of can be solved through the FHIR servers, or FHIR terminology servers. Another problem, which is from my point of view is bigger, is how to get all this content and how to massage it to be like FHIR compatible. And this is a huge challenge. And we start working on the term box, which is like, it's not yet announced, it's a pre-announce of it. So essentially it's like terminology as a service. So the idea that people should, for some reasonable amount of money, I think it should be like $100 per month, not 1,000. Like they should get all the like up-to-date terminologies working, because usually when you see how people like working with loading Eric's norm, Snowman, they're spending months. So we picked the team of like best engineers, and they spent half a year to load and to onto server all the publicly and not publicly available stuff. And there's a lot of corner cases. And so that I can predict this terminology as a service part, especially for big dynamic terminologies like Snowman, Lowing, and other stuff, UMLS. And what we want to do, so when we're gonna finish this project by loading most of like popular terminologies, especially like all terminologies from IGs, there's a lot of mess as well, but we want to make it similar to what the Odyssey and OMOP guys did. So we want to publish our pipelines and they even name for that. We're gonna call it Babylon project and share with the community. So I can imagine at least we can share the scripts, maybe not the data, but we can share the data for the open terminologies. So I can imagine like S3 bucket with like ND.json files for all open terminologies, so people don't have to do it once again. So, and there's some way to synchronize. If there's some updates, I can get it. So we published like a very draft, we call it like FHIR terminology repository. It's like a Git for terminology stuff. So, but this is a very draft, and we're gonna like, we're working now to make it work. That's how usually Samurai working. So we make it work, and then we bring it back to the community. So for now, we make it work like aggregating all the terminologies, and now we're gonna bring it back to the community as a Babylon project, so that people can contribute extra scripts, and we will have like nicely centralized way to get all the terminology. Because I really like how the Odyssey guys did it. So the Athena is beautiful. So the FHIR has a slightly different terminology, not the same challenges as Athena, and I think we can build it. Yeah, so that's welcome. So again, so we just like, this is idea of this project, but we're working. Whenever we finish, we will publish this, and I think we will kick off the like working group for that as a part of like terminology working group.
Excellent. So for people who are already using Aidbox, will these scripts help them index a terminology into their instance of Aidbox?
So for now, we are still thinking what how the like terminology should interact properly with the FHIR server. Initially, we did like a very kind of naive implementation where you can load everything into the same database. But then, like you're building small EHR, you have like 1,000 patients, but then you're loading Snowmet and your database, boom. So and then you get the problem that you have to like synchronize the Snowmet stuff. So and for now we're working on the concept of hybrid terminology, where some terminology can live locally in your FHIR server, because you probably manage this and you probably want to manage it through the user interface. Yes, like you're building your questionnaires, you want to like build your value sets, and you want to keep them like dynamic on a like FHIR server together. But for example, you can hook the external terminology for Snowman or Lowing, and you don't care about like the up-to-date or the language packs and all this stuff. So for now, Aidbox can have a like mini terminology inside. It can be integrated with the external terminology server, and we are working on a hybrid approach where you can like manage some terminology locally, and for the rest of terminology you can hook the external one or probably multiple servers. And for Aidbox it's going to be like Termbox, because and I think we'll soon announce the Termbox. It's going to have like free API for development as well, so you will get like up to date all the stuff. For a long time we were using like Gram stuff like TXOrg. We installed it locally, but so we're going to make it like production ready, so that like Gram server is good for like standard development, but it's not so fast as we want to have it, like, and it's not like quickly updated. It requires restart for all this stuff. So we want to provide like robust FHIR terminology server for developers, so they have like as well. So too much. It's not yet released.
No. I mean,
but hybrid approach, I think this is a nice idea. It's kind of complicated in details, but that's how I think we think that it should be done in the right way. Because I don't want like have a Snowmet locally and sync it. But I want to have like small value set locally and like be able to work with it.
Absolutely. I mean, this sounds like a cool product. I think the licensing is going to be the nightmare here. Like, how do you prove that someone has access with it? But congratulations on the launch. And yeah, this has been really good. So I think, do you have anything else that you want to talk about before we wind up?
Yeah, maybe next interesting question, and we're working on it, is the SDK stuff. So for now, FHIR has a kind of static style SDK, like C#, the JavaScript and all this stuff. But what I see in the future, and we are actively working on it, this is like generators for SDK. Because as we see, the FHIR is quite dynamic. It can be like described with IGs, getting more details, more constraints. And we're working, and I know that Gina is working for Microsoft on the similar stuff, and the Graham is experimenting on like making SDK generatable, and especially based on like profiles and terminology, because we can build a lot into these types, like a lot of this stuff, and maybe some sugar, but it should not be like manually written. It should be generated. So the current SDK, they really generated for now, but like generator is not the public part of it. And it is very early stage for generating on profiles and using terminology for that. But that's where we're working on, and I think so I can expect some nice features there. Because imagine that you can like you can generate a US core with a blood pressure with a nice sugar, and you can work with a blood pressure class with all this stuff in your TypeScript code or C# code. So, and especially using modern LLM and all this stuff, yeah. So it will autocomplete for you like 80% what you want to write.
Yeah, imagine custom resources. You need to
yeah, definitely. Custom resources, they will become logical models, and we can generate for logical models here. Okay. And because they are dynamic, yes, and we definitely need generator for logical models to use custom resources. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this is a very interesting field, because we are working on something where we were trying to do this. There's a bunch of GraphQL code generators. There's a bunch of Open API code generators. gRPC is quite good at this, but then maybe the FHIR approach is just looking at the definitions and then generating code from that. Yeah.
Yeah, we struggle a lot. So we tried to like make FHIR and JSON schema friends for a long time. To be honest, the first validation engine in Aidbox was like written in JSON schema, and we transpile FHIR to JSON schema, but they don't play well. So the FHIR has its own semantic, and yes, you can potentially generate JSON schema like OpenAPI and then generate some classes, but you will not get like as good as it possible. So that's why we're working on the FHIR schema, which is like JSON schema-like stuff, but very specialized in FHIR. And then we're using FHIR schema to do the generators, and it's going to be quite generic. So to be honest, like from the FHIR schema we're producing, we call the type schema, which is essentially all the data generator needs. And the final, for example, the final TypeScript generator takes only 1.5 pages. So, and like, because the most of work is done in like preparation. We're resolving all dependencies, we like splitting nested structures into like subtypes, and we provide it as a type schema. And then to write the final generator for Go or for TypeScript should be just a matter of like a couple of pages. And this is another project. So we're doing this open source, so you're welcome to join, reach me out. And I think this is an interesting future, yeah, for SDK when we switch to generator style from like static. And this is a really very nice developer experience, and this make us closer to true modular FHIR EHR. Yeah.
You're like multiple open source projects, spearheading all of them simultaneously. Excellent. So definitely, I'll put how do they contact you? Maybe just on your LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is the best place, or go to zulip.fhir.org. So if you're not there, so you should be there. So there's like hundreds like active passionate people, and like it's about like 50,000 people in FHIR chat.
So, Nikolai, thanks a lot for taking the time today. And this was excellent, right? Like the whole demo. I'm still thinking, have I missed something? Because there are just so many different things. And I actually saw the forms and the
We
questionnaires.
can make
that
it
you...
as a series. We can make it as a series because I think every topic we discuss here can deserve like a couple of hours to discussion. So maybe if your listeners will say that we're really interested in this topic, we can make a very dedicated topic.
Yeah, I mean, let us know. Like, put it in the comments. Let me know if I should call Nikolai again, and then we could discuss something specific. And you can always reach out to him. I'll put a link to his LinkedIn down below. I'll also leave a link to all of the resources, the demos, the other YouTube videos, and the other groups. There's just so much. But then I'll try to put all the resources down in the description. So, Nikolai, again, thanks a lot. And best of luck.
Yeah.
I'll see you again,
Thank
hopefully.
you. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you for pushing standards in a public space. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Nikolai.